Is everyone in? I'm looking at Balint.
Yes, no one in the waiting room.
Oh, wait.
Oh, I think I'm having... Yeah, okay, I'm back.
It's way too long. Right, there we are.
Okay, welcome everyone. Applause for the movie. Great job. Superb. You should do that
Right.
more. Okay, welcome to the IMS debate for the steering committee. I'm Lawrence. I'm one of the delegates here together with Hugh and Casper. So we are electing a new steering committee to replace Benjamin and oh, I'm sorry, not Clara, but Marina. Oh, my head.
Yes,
Never mind.
it's,
But we have.
let me take over for this introduction, maybe.
Thank you. Thanks.
So, thank you all candidates to be here. Thank you, viewers. I see a few of you. So tonight is the debate for the candidates to the position of steering committee member. That will replace me and Marina, that were the elected steering committee member for the past term. This is the steering committee was a new thing we created a little bit less than 2 years ago, so it was not a full 2 year term. Marina has been elected to the bureau and will be for the two next years bureau representative to the steering committee, and two of you candidates will be the two individual members elected to the steering committee, replacing me, and Marina will still be there, but in a different position. It's been a great pleasure, I think, for me, and I think I speak for Marina, to be the first steering committee member and to kind of define a little bit the roles. It's something you will, guys, also be in charge of continuing doing and building upon what we have built for the past 2 years. And just to clarify for people who might be not completely familiar with this thing yet, but I think been now in the mind of everybody how it works. But just as a reminder, when we divided 2 years ago the role of delegates, we decided to create a steering committee that is more in charge of the animation of the section, the organization along the year, more administrative stuff in close relation with the office and the bureau, and to organize events, to animate the section. And the delegates remain in charge of representing you and the individual members at the Congress, and carry the votes of the individual members at the Congress, and do more of the policy side work and the actual voting. So this is basically how it is. There are some things that we do together because sometimes those things are less clear, less divided. We do communication, we work together, and things like this. So thank you again for running, all four of you: Alistair, Eleni, Ruslan, and Tim. Tonight we have the debate. So Lawrence will be the moderator for the debate, and you will first have time to give an introduction. Lawrence will tell you how long, then there will be question rounds, and then you will be, of course, allowed to have a closing statement. So thank you again, thanks for running, and now I'll give the floor to Lawrence to moderate the debate. And
thank you. Thank you, Benjamin. Okay, so a few simple rules. If you want to have the floor, please write down a chat comment. Don't just start interrupting, etc., because that always makes it extra difficult on online platforms. When it comes to muting, I'm the only one who will mute candidates when they go over time or when they are starting to interrupt someone. If you're also speaking too long, I will give you a short hint through the chat. And then I think we can start this debate. So you all get precisely 2 minutes to introduce yourself. Or let's make 3 because we're not having too many candidates. You get 3 minutes to introduce yourself. and to tell your plans, what you would like to do when you would become a member of the steering committee for the individual member section of LYMEC. And let's start with Tim. Tim Robinson, the floor is yours. 3 minutes.
Hello. So I know that my name is Tim Robinson, which sounds like a very, very English name, but one of the biggest motivations that I really have for getting involved in European politics is the fact that despite that very English name, I don't have a very English background. My mother is from former Yugoslavia. It's complicated to say which part. And as a result of the wars that happened there in the 1990s, my mother came to the UK as a refugee, and my aunts and uncles live in all kinds of different countries. My grandmother lives in Sweden. So my family is all the way through Europe. And for me, the story of how that came to be was essentially a story of how European cooperation can help people in really desperate circumstances, like those that happened to my family in the early 90s. And so, but beyond just that personal motivation, I also come from a country where support for youth politics is pretty poor. I think it's very, very difficult for us to offer opportunities to our members for professional development, for involvement, because there's just so little funding available and we get so little support from a government that, frankly, doesn't like young people getting involved in politics. And one of the things that I noticed when I started to get involved in LYMEC was how different that was on the European level. How there were so many different programs in place to help people who wanted to get involved, who wanted to gain experience, and who wanted to be able to gain the skills to go out and work on European politics once they leave LYMEC and go to, I don't want to say grown-up politics, but that sort of higher level of politics. And I've really seized on some of those opportunities over the last few years. And now I think I'm at the stage where I want to be able to help other people take advantage of those opportunities, perhaps by helping people get over some of the problems that I faced. One of which is namely that I just didn't really know that LYMEC existed or that the IMS was a thing for quite a while. And if I had known, I probably would have got involved even sooner. And so increasing engagement and participation is one of the 3 main areas I'd want to focus on. The other is increasing support for new members. When people join the IMS, I had the advantage that I had already got involved in some LYMEC events before through my own national member organization. For people who are joining from scratch, they don't necessarily have that, and it can be very daunting to know where to go. So I want to increase support for new members. And finally, I think that we need to have a bit more information and transparency within the IMS. People who are paying their IMS subscriptions would like to know how the delegates are voting at congresses and what positions they are adopting and how they're supporting them. And we don't really get that information at the moment. So those are the 3 areas that I would like to focus on in the IMS.
Perfectly timed. Thank you, Tim. And then the next one to introduce himself and to tell why he wants to become a steering committee member of the individual members is Ruslan. Ruslan, the floor is yours. 3 minutes.
Thank you very much. Hello, everybody. So my name is Ruslan Abdurrahman. I hope everyone already read the introduction letter and also my resume that was uploaded on the site. I joined LYMEC in last September, and I already ran. This is the 3rd election I'm running for since the beginning of the year. I came to LYMEC with the project, bringing LYMEC closer to the territories, not to be just in Brussels, because there are many, I'm not the ones to say many places, there are some countries in Europe where there aren't parties associated to ALDI party or LYMEC. So I think that we need to bring LYMEC, not as a political party, but most like an association to spread liberalism across European youth. I think it's the most important job we have inside of LYMEC. And I really believe that in that. I wasn't born as a liberal. I come from the left. I became liberal for various reasons. I could say the author, I could think I'm more closer is the economist Milton Friedman. So I'm very more, I could say, a right-wing liberal. I like the fact that both ALDE party and LYMEC, it's like a house for every liberal. And the most important issue we find when we speak with a liberal is that we try to say to the other person, you're not a liberal. So I will not do that. Instead, I really believe we should put behind what do we believe, our beliefs, and we should build something together. So I'm an individual member of LYMEC. I'm also an individual member of the ALDE party, but I'm not really participating in that, just have the membership. I am not involved in any party at the national level. I forget to say I live in Italy. I'm really focused in LYMEC, and I believe that just with European dimension we can build something. So this is my broad vision. I already wrote in the letter, and I'm very happy to tell you about that now. Since I have some seconds left, I really would be interested if you would make me some questions about, or if you would like to know more about my view. Thank you.
Okay, perfect, within time as well. Next one in line is Eleni. Eleni, floor's yours. Who are you and why would you like to become a steering committee member?
Yes, hi everyone. So my name is Eleni. For those who do not know me, I come from Greece originally. I currently live in Brussels for 1.5 years now, and I'm working here. Before getting my current job, basically the reason I moved to Brussels was to work for LYMEC last year, before the European elections, and then I decided that I want to stay in Brussels in general. I've been involved in the liberal field since 2013 as a member of the Friedrich Naumann Foundation in Greece. I was also elected delegate from August the previous year till January this year that the mandate ended. And I represented the individual members during the London Congress. I think the steering committee is a very important role on how the IMS section is functioning. And the reason why I wanted to run was basically because I have the background on how being a delegate and how to communicate with the rest of the IMS members. But also I would like to make the IMS section more visible. And this is something that will be decided, of course, with the rest of the steering committee members if I get elected. But also because I know the hardship that the section is facing, I would like to provide my insights and my experience that I gain, and hopefully we can get more people involved. We can have a better management of our database. I know that the previous steering committee was working for a new tool so that we can better manage our database. And of course, there have been some ideas on how to improve the section during the Lisbon event in November. And I would like to take all of the comments from there aboard and work towards achieving our goals. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. And then final but not, there is, sorry. Then last but definitely not least, Alistair Sperring. Who are you and why would you like to become a member of the steering committee?
Well, hi again, everyone. It's really good to see liberal politics still going strong despite the lockdown in all the countries. When I first joined the IMS a couple of years ago, I was still serving as European officer for JNC. And what really struck me is that despite some, in my opinion, completely undeserved reputation as being a bit of a madhouse, the IMS was actually shining and getting very good results in some areas. Since I joined the IMS and I've been more active in the section, I've come to think that the potential of the section would be even bigger if we took all these amazing things we've done in some areas and tried to spread them across the board and do it across the whole political spectrum. That will mean that our ideas, our values will be able to become political realities much more easily and consistently. As I said, when I first joined, I also belong to an MO, and many of us also do that, both people here today and people who are not attending today. And for us, the IMS is a second home. But I think we should strengthen even more the role of the IMS as the first home, even as the only home for liberals in certain countries where there aren't strong national liberal youth movements, or simply who want to do activism on their own. It is for this reason that if you trust me with your vote and I am elected, I will work to recruit more people and to raise the profile of LYMEC in these countries. It's very important to me as well that when we recruit new people, whether they belong to MOs or not, we go back and offer an updated version of the training programs we used to offer to new recruits. This could take the form of a special event, or it could, it could refer to packages given to new members. I also think that the best way of making an impact in the political positionings of LYMEC is to make sure that the IMS always comes up with very strongly opinionated resolutions, and therefore, although we have already been submitting very good resolutions, I think we should choose the subjects, even tailor them to make a real impact. Finally, we are doing very good events such as the cybersecurity one. I think we should spread the impact of that to other parts of LYMEC so that more people can see what the IMS does and more people engage with the IMS.
Okay, perfect. Also within the 3 minutes. And then we can actually start with the real debate. If you feel like answering, just write it in the comments, like if you're asking the floor or you want to speak. And then I actually have a question. Looking back at the last steering committee, what do you actually think were the strong points, and how would you like to make them even stronger and better? And what were the weak points? On which points do we need to pay as an individual member section? On which points do we need to pay more attention? Yeah, Eleni, the floor is yours.
Sorry, I didn't know what to write, so I just wrote me. Yeah, so I think one problem that I can identify is the fact that probably due to workload, the IMS, the new IMS, the new members were not very quickly updated with our rules or send a welcome email, and there was a miscommunication in that area. So in the future, I think we should be more effective on that, and quicker on our responses. And one thing that I identify as good is that the whole the visuals, the visualization, and the concept of the IMS changed with establishing the steering committee. So it made us more visible on Facebook and other social media, but it still needs some work so that we can get to the point where we are visible to external people. Because I think if you are not following the IMS Facebook profile or other accounts that are related to IMS, we do not get enough visibility at this point. You need to be a follower so that you can know about the IMS. So yeah, that was good, but at the same time, some work. Thank you.
Thank you, Eleni. And what do you think, Alistair? Do you think Eleni is making a good analysis, or do you think we need to put other highlights?
One thing that I believe our predecessors of who are elected today did very well was strengthen the organizational capacity and the way the IMS worked. That was very well done. It's not always easy to run a human team, a team of people with people from so many diverse backgrounds, and yet they ran a very tight ship. An area for improvement, on the other hand, would be, as I mentioned in my opening statement, that with a couple of notable exceptions who were very involved, in general, individual members who do not belong to MOs prefer to stay very much in the background and didn't take on a very active role. I would like to make these people step into the spotlight, give them new opportunities and encourage them to be more active in the IMS, because at the end of the day, they provide a different perspective and can enrich the debate in a way that people like myself, who used to be part of an MO, don't necessarily do. So that's one definite area for improvement.
Thank you very much. And then I had a request from Tim. Do you share the analysis you've just heard, or do you have a different view on what was good and what could be better?
I share a lot of the opinions on what was good and what stands to be improved. I would prefer not to relate the question to how I think our predecessors did in their roles, because I think it's hard to determine what exactly people have done right and wrong. And the other thing is, I was not a member of the IMS 2 years ago when they were elected. I don't know what they inherited and the work that's been done, but I can say that I have witnessed over the last year or so how the profile of the IMS has been raised, how it's been made clearer what the purpose of the IMS is within LYMEC. But I think, linking to what Alistair said, that it can be quite hard for people who aren't a member of an MO to find their place in the IMS. When I joined, I didn't really receive a welcome email or any kind of materials to help me find my place. And having previously been involved in LYMEC, having been involved in my national MO, I knew where to go and who to talk to and how to get information, but I couldn't help but feel that if I had just joined IMS and that was my first ever involvement in LYMEC, that it would have been really tough. So I think that's an area that we do really need to focus on in the next term of the steering committee.
Okay, thank you very much. And then actually, Pau is asked for the floor because he wants to ask a question. Well, Pau, the floor is yours. What's your question?
Thank you very much.
Welcome, by the way.
Hello, everyone. How are you all doing? I'm very happy to be here, and yeah, I'm really loving all of your contributions. I think that you know, the quality of the ideas that have been put on the table really prove you know, how important it is that the IMS is an active part in LYMEC. So thank you for that. Okay, so I have a question specifically about the experience that you think could help, the experience that you have, each of you have, that things that could help you guys in developing your roles for the IMS. So what are the experiences, be it in activism or professionally or or in any other let's say really area of your lives that you think that could help, you know, in developing your tasks? And especially, and another question as well would be, in the past I think we have seen different moments of the IMS. There was a period in time where I would say it is quiet. I mean, it is well known that there was an issue with getting, you know, the IMS, you know, getting the MOs to know about the IMS in a realistic way. So many MOs didn't really know what the IMS was about, and I think this really proved an issue between IMS and MO relations. I think this has been corrected in the last years, and I think many of the reasons for that are here in this debate today. I think Benjamin has done great, and many of you, Lenny has also helped. You know, many of you guys have been so involved in making this, this in solving this. So I would say, what would you think is the way ahead in this relationship with member organizations, and how are you going to help ensure that there is a good relationship on the path forward? Thank you.
Thank you very much. So if you would like to have the floor, just ask for it, of course. But then first of all, Ruslan, Because I think you also want to answer the past question. If you want to do that,
yeah, I'll try to answer to both questions, and
okay,
also I
perfect.
have another question. So I will start from the last question. So, well, since last September, I started to participate to various, we could say, meetings or activities that were created here in Italy by the few liberals subjects that aren't parties mainly, but are associations. And since I'm one that is very open-minded, and I talk with everyone, I succeeded to put in contact many people that weren't speaking with each other, either because they didn't know about the existence of the other side, or because they just weren't engaging. So I think that I'm good in creating links between people, organizations, associations. So I think this is something LYMEC could use. I will then ask to the previous question. I don't want to judge. I can just report my experience. When I joined LYMEC in last September, I remember that I wrote a letter asking to LYMEC to help me to build something in Italy, to do something in Italy. The only one that was answering to my emails was Balint. He said that he also forwarded my message to the steering committee. I also wrote to the bureau. I did not receive any answer. I'm not here to judge. I just was ignored. Maybe they had something more important. But I think that, yeah, I think that's why we need to put in our priorities to have a more dialogue with local dimension, not just European politics. Because I know it's LYMEC is part of ALDE party and it's a European party, but I see, as I already told, LYMEC also as a way to spread liberalism among the European youth. And on this point, I'd like to make a question. I have a question for Alistair. You said that you would like to improve LYMEC, as I also said, for countries where there is no a party or an association. So I was very interested what was your plan, in particular if you really thought about something about Italy. And the other things I forgot to say before, I really believe in the, we should stretch the importance of free market, because we hear, I don't know you, but I hear from social media or in the television, many people talking against the free market. I think it's our main point, at least maybe because I'm more right-wing liberal, but I think our common European common market is something we have to preserve. And today, 32 countries are member of this market. That is not just the EU, but are also the 4 European Free Trade Agreements countries, plus the UK until the 31 of December 2020. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you. But let's go first to Eleni because she still wants to answer the question of Pau, and then Alistair will have also the time to prepare his answer for the question of Ruslan, also to Alistair, if that's okay with everyone. Eleni, floor's yours. Which way should we go?
Okay, I'm unmuted. Yeah, sorry, got a bit confused, but I'm back to Pau's questions. My experience, yes, I worked for LYMEC. I was a delegate, an elected delegate last year, and I've also been involved in other organizations at the EU level, both serving as a bureau member and also as head of HR, which is very important for managing the IMS database and the IMS members for LYMEC. So that was for the past, I think I'm involved in youth organizations for the past 6 years. So I have a very in-depth experience, both in LYMEC and in other youth organizations. And for the relationship with the MOs, that's a bit tricky. I know that we are in a better place now than we were a year and a half ago. Many member organizations know about the IMS. I've seen that I've experienced that during the London Congress as well, where we had demos coming to the delegates and asking for their opinions and their support on different resolutions and amendments, which was very good. But at this stage, I think if we can take a step forward and engage a little bit more, a good opportunity for the for the individual members will be to get invited to the IMOS congresses, to be more active on that field, to get invited to trainings by the member organizations, which is something that at least while I'm in LYMEC, I don't think it's happening. I'm not sure whether there's something in the background that I'm unaware of. But yes, I think one step forward would be to get the individual members more involved. And what if there are individual members, for example, in Spain, and you have a training happening with our local MOs, then they do get the opportunity to participate there and engage with people. Thank you.
Thank you, Eleni. And then we jump to Alistair. And yes, I do need to tell everyone, I've noticed Eleni working at the office of LYMEC. I saw you working. But Alistair, floor's yours.
Yeah, let me start with Pau's first question about the experience. Well, in addition to having been the JNC's European officer for a couple of years, I've also been involved in other forms of party politics, for example, in the Catalan Democrats. I'm also a member of the Lib Dems. And I've been for quite a long time a member of the European Federalist Youth, Jeff. Actually, that's where I met Ben many years ago. As in all these organizations, if there's something you can say about me is that my style is not exuberant, it's not flamboyant, but it gets the job done. It's a very effective style, and this is something that I think I can bring to the IMS section if I get elected to the steering committee. Moving on to Ruslan's question, as I said, I have a style that means getting things done, even if it doesn't mean doing it in a spectacular way. And specifically to get more people involved from countries where there aren't any MOs or they're not very active right now. I like to focus on the bread and butter aspects of politics. And I think that often, not just in the IMS, but in every political youth organization ever, we are talking about lots of sophisticated things, but we forget about the cogs and wheels, the bread and butter of politics. And I would like to work with the other person who's elected to the steering committee and the bureau to run a training event for individual members, which is specifically focused on recruiting new people to our youth organization. How do we do that? Where do we find these people? How do we convince them to come on board? If possible, and if the budget allows, it would be great to have this event in one of the countries where we don't have an active MO. Also, it'll be very important to work on social media to reach these countries, to reach people who are not members of LYMEC, who may not even know yet that LYMEC exists, but to make sure that they know it exists and that they want to become a part of it. So that'll be a focus on building our capacity for recruiting new people and a focus on social media geared towards these countries. Finally, moving on to Pau's second question, as Eleni said, we've come a long way in terms of recognition of the IMS by MOs. Now it's time to move on from recognition to engagement. And I think that the best way of making people from MOs engage with the IMS is to make sure that the IMS stands at the center of the political and organizational debate in LYMEC. Therefore, I will fight, if elected, I will fight for the IMS to always come up with very strong positions, whether in political debates or ideological debates or organizational debates, and that with positionings that force, so to speak, MOs to take a stance, whether for or against what the IMS section suggests. But at any rate, it will leave no one indifferent, and it will force MOs to engage with the IMS, and therefore get people used to engaging with the IMS and making it normal for them.
Perfect, thank you, Alistair. And then I suppose it's indeed Tim. You would like to answer this question as well?
Yes. So
Perfect.
I think firstly, in response to the point about experience, well, I first really became involved in politics in 2016, which was when we had the EU referendum in the UK. And that was really quite an experience of being chucked into the deep end, because I was 19, I went to the local branch of the campaign, the Stronger in Europe campaign, and they basically told me, oh, you're the only person who has come from your university. You can be in charge of your university. And I went to UCL, a university with about 30,000 students. So there was a lot to do, and I didn't really have very much experience, but it was a very, very steep learning curve, and I picked up a lot then. I had got involved in LYMEC initially through my member organization, the Young Liberals in the UK, and that provided a really great opportunity to sample what was there. But over the last year or so, I've started to make my own opportunities through the IMS. I went to the event in Sarajevo last summer where we wrote essays about our visions about liberal visions for Europe. In January last year, I attended a seminar at the Friedrich Naumann Foundation in Germany and got to speak about Brexit. So I've really tried to make my own opportunities outside my member organization. So I think I have a lot of experience of both of those things. Firstly, working from within an MO, but also trying to make your own path through LYMEC. And I think it's fantastic that we're able to do that. In terms of professional experience, I currently work in public sector audit, which is a very fun job where it's basically my job to show up and tell people that I don't think they're doing their jobs properly, but in a very polite way. And without being too pushy, I think I have learned how to be very constructively critical, because our clients in that sector, and they are public sector clients, so it is relevant, are paying not because they want to be told that they're doing things wrong, but because they want to be told how to do things better. So that's just an aside on top of all the involvement in LYMEC and European politics on how some of my professional experience helps as well.
Thank you very much. And now it's time actually I'm going to step up a bit the debate, because one of the main problems we have also with the delegates on this moment, we want more delegates. But if we want to have more delegates on congresses, we do need more members. Now, I have heard from Alistair, he would like to have events, also IMS events, in countries without MOs, so we could also spread liberalism there. But then my question is, when it comes to making new members for the individual members section, will having an event in one of those countries be enough? What would we need to do, very specifically, to get more individual members? I would like to hear 3 proposals, short and swiftly, from everyone. Who would like to go first? Alistair.
Well, as I said, the cornerstone of the strategy would be training, not just one event, but continuous training on recruiting new members. That being said, we have to divide this into getting new members who are already members of MOs and getting new members from countries where they don't have MOs. In the latter case, in addition to what I said before, we will have to work close together with non-party political liberal organizations that may exist in these countries. For example, Students for Liberty has chapters in many European countries, and it could be a way of gaining a foothold in these countries and then going beyond just holding an event. And this could be a source of manpower for the IMS. as for getting people who already belong to MOs, I think that having activities or events like the one we had for the Bureau election, in which we ran, in which as an IMS we ran a debate, if we opened that to the rest of LYMEC, everyone would say, "Wow, the IMS Bureau candidate debate was really awesome. I wanna find out more about the IMS. I want to take part." And we could do this with that event and make it into a regular fixture in LYMEC Live, and do the same with other events, like run events that are for the IMS, but which give visibility to the IMS outside itself within LYMEC, and show people basically what we're doing so that they want to belong to the IMS.
Thank you very much. And then let's go to the next one. Tim, how would you make new individual members?
So I think, as Alistair has touched on, there's essentially two sets within the IMS, and that is people who are already members of an MO and for whom LYMEC is an additional level to political engagement that allows them to get involved directly with LYMEC on the European level. And then there are members who aren't part of MOs. And so I know you asked for three, I'll essentially give two, because it's about how I would target those two separate groups. In terms of members of existing organizations, I think we need to take advantage of opportunities to spread knowledge of the IMS's existence. As I said, for me, the problem was much more fundamental than just than not thinking the IMS was something worth joining. I didn't know that it existed for a very long time. And I think there's a lot of people who know about LYMEC, but they don't know about the IMS. So that means when we have Bureau members going to the conferences and congresses of our MOs, that they make an attempt to publicize the IMS, and that this is something that people should really consider joining, even though they are already involved with their MO. And in terms of reaching out to those who aren't part of a member organization, I think the IMS needs an expanded social media presence, because at the moment, our social media presence is essentially a subset of LYMEC as a whole. I think we should consider the possibility of having separate social media accounts so that we can really publicize that the IMS is almost an organization within an organization, that we are the MO for those who don't have an MO. And at the moment, that doesn't necessarily get through with the way that IMS posts are coming through LYMEC accounts, that the IMS corner is tagged onto existing LYMEC emails. There doesn't seem to be enough tailored specifically to the IMS.
Thank you. Next one's Eleni.
No. Yes. Okay. I will go back to a point that Tim made about our presence. On Facebook, we do have an individual members page, which is kind of dead for the past months. I'm not gonna say year, but we can definitely revive it, either as a member of the steering committee or as an individual member demand to revive it. And back to Lauren's question, I mean, I get your point, but I think we are focusing too much on recruitment, and we should focus also, first focus on how we can engage the members that we have right now, because that's the hard part. I mean, if you cannot make people that are an individual member engaged, how then you can attract more people? If your base and the people who are there to support you do not do anything, when we have calls that only one people joins, and when we ask for someone to submit an idea for resolution and we have no one, then how can you, like, really, how can you attract more people if you cannot even attract your own members? But apart from that, which is a consideration of mine, to answer your question, I believe that we can, for example, we can target people who belong to our member organizations, as Alistair said, and we can also focus on people who are already member of their MO, but in a year or two, they cannot no longer be a member of this member organization due to age restrictions. They need to know that they have the opportunity to to remain a member of LYMEC until they're 35, regardless of the age restriction that their member organization has. And as an individual member who doesn't come from a member organization, I learned about the IMS section from basically people who were already IMS and were advocating and raising their voice that this thing exists. So in order to get people outside of member organizations, I think we need to have a better strategy when it comes to communicating what we are doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Eleni. And then actually I'm looking at Ruslan. Do you have anything to say about this, or?
Yes.
Okay, close
Of course. So, well, the first point, I think I support the fact that making events like Alistair said about these events, I think they should be focused on the economics, because many people, even young people, they lack of knowledge, and it is useful today to understand the around us, and also because to understand what's happening in politics, because many politicians, they do not know anything about economics, or they think that they know anything about economics. So when you something that is totally crazy,
yes,
or
but Ruslan,
false.
But could you also please answer my question? What would you do to get more members for the individual members?
I support of making events. This is I was answering, making more events, but for on the economics, to give liberal economic view, because I think that many young people would like to have these events with a European background, but they have opportunities. The other thing I think is about partnership, local associations, because these associations, I think that many people could decide to join LYMEC as individual members. So this would be, I'm thinking about the situation I'm living in. So this is, and the third point, I think that, as I already said, if LYMEC wants more individual members, LYMEC needs to be closer not just in Brussels, because if you're just in Brussels or you just think about European politics, not so many people would be interested to join LYMEC. Instead, if LYMEC starts coming closer, common people, I think this would help.
Yeah, thank you. And then very swiftly, 1 minute, Tim, and then afterwards, and then he gets a point, and then we move to Hugh. Tim, 1 minute.
Yes, so I think to an extent we're all kind of violently agreeing with each other on most points, but I will say that I would be quite heavily against what Ruslan is suggesting in terms of economics-focused events. I think it's quite clear that we all have very different ideas of what liberalism can mean, and there is no one liberal economics that one can talk of. I'm sure that I have very different economic views to him, and there will be such a huge room for bias depending on who is hosting that seminar and what kind of theories they're talking about. And second of all, LYMEC is a wonderful opportunity for professional development, but we're not a university. It's not our role to be teaching people economic theory, and we're not going to be able to teach anything meaningful to people in the course of a one-weekend event.
Okay, thank you very much. And now with the point from Eleni.
Yes, I think that's the point that I've been repeatedly making to Ruslan, even during the IMS delegate debate, is about LYMEC being only in Brussels. I find this quite offensive. LYMEC has 52, if not mistaken, member organizations. We are all around Europe. LYMEC has been at least in 4 different countries last year. Bureau members are visiting the member organizations. So this point of LYMEC being in Brussels, it's quite a statement. And if you could at least consider not making it because it's invalid. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And then 1 minute, Ruslan, and then we go to Hugh's question. One
I'll
minute.
start from answering to Eleni. Yes, there are options, but where do you bring IMS member organizations that are already present in LYMEC, or if you want to bring new people, you need to be more present in the territories, because it's normal that someone who is a member of a member organization of LYMEC knows about LYMEC, but not. And if you think about countries where there are no member organizations, I'm really sure that LYMEC is really active on that side. About team, I was saying about teaching economics like a microeconomics class. I was saying about these issues that are very common because we hear in the newspaper hear things about economics. I think we cannot escape from that. I know that there are different views. I'm not just saying that we have to impose one view, but speaking about these issues,
yes, thank you very much. But the minute for the short answer is over, because the thing I'm actually hearing here right now a bit is about, like, if we want to contact more people also throughout Europe, if we want to actually maintain contact with the member organizations, we do need, like, maybe a good, you as a steering committee. Is that your role? Is it maybe also a role for the Bureau? Maybe also a role for a part of the Congress delegates? And I do think Hugh's question will be about that. So Hugh, please pose your question.
What a surprise. Yeah, my question was going to be, so there's the steering committee, there's the delegates, and there's the LYMEC Bureau member who's usually allocated to the individual members. How do you see these three sort of institutions interacting? What sort of work allocations should be given to what, and how do you see communication between the three?
Okay, Eleni, you're first.
Hi, Hugh. Well, I think it's quite clear from the statutes what the communications should be. That's why one member of the steering committee is also a bureau member, so that can enhance the communication between the steering committee and the bureau. But at the same time, as we are all active, I know that we will be representing as steering committee the individual members in different events as well. So that is also a channel of communication with the bureau, but otherwise I think it's very clear from the statutes who is responsible for what and the communication between the steering committee and the bureau at this point.
Okay, thank you very much. And next one's up is Tim. How do you think the roles should be divided? And is it clear to you what the bureau does, what the steering committee does, and what the delegates have to do?
So to an extent, I do agree with what Eleni has said, that the statutes do make quite clear how those three different organs all come into play. But one area that I do think there is a potential confusion about amongst members, perhaps not so much amongst ourselves, is who is responsible for drafting motions and resolutions that go to Congresses, and what that process is, because the delegates are our voice in the Congress, the voice of the IMS, and hold the voting power, but the role played between the steering committee and the delegates is not entirely clear to a lot of the members, and that's why I have made transparency one of the points that I'm running on. I think that for the members' sake, there needs to be greater transparency after Congresses in terms of receiving a report on how resolutions have been processed, on which delegates were responsible for forwarding them, and how delegates have voted, so that they know what has been going on and how the process has operated. Because at the moment, it can feel a little bit as though the moment a member, if they just an individual member sends an email with their suggestion, that's where their involvement and their knowledge of the process ends.
I just have one small question to Tim regarding this, because of course we had an election we had an election for new representatives towards the Congress. Are you talking about the process we had last Congress, or are you also speaking about the team we had with the Congress in Brussels and London? To which congresses are you referring exactly?
So again, talking as with the previous question about the steering committee, I don't want to relate this to specific people and to which delegates before or after the election are responsible. I don't think it's the responsibility of delegates. I think it's just an institutional issue that the process is not entirely clear and the communication to members isn't there to let them know what's happened with their suggestions.
Yeah, and what do you think the process is, what do you think the current process is? Could you describe the current process?
So the current process, and I may be horrifically mistaken about this, is that if individual members want a proposal for a motion or for a resolution to the steering to the Congress, that they raise it to the steering committee, and the steering committee forwards it to the delegates when that forwards it to the that the steering committee will look at the proposal, and that then one of the delegates will be responsible for actually raising it and supporting it in the Congress.
I'll let Eleni react to this really swiftly, and then we go to you, Alistair, okay?
Yeah.
So, Eleni?
So being a delegate, I can only speak for my term there. But we did have, first of all, it's the delegates. The delegates are responsible for the resolutions. So we had open calls for people to submit their ideas. We had open calls for having an online discussion about an idea. We had open calls for everything. The people that turned out were very few, even with no ideas, which is fine. In the end, we had the resolution submitted, and then we called for people for their input. Again, we had an online debate about that. Nobody appeared. So it links back to my point that we need to mobilize the people that we already have in our base, because that's where the issue is, and that's where the communication actually fits, if you see what I mean.
Yeah, exactly. Because with last Congress, we had a similar process, but of course, due to Corona and Digital Congress, there were no resolutions. But we did have an event and a debate about how we would vote on the bureau members. So that was all spoken through with the members. But then we go to Alistair. Floor's yours.
I concur with the others that from a regulatory point of view, it's very clear what role corresponds to each part of the whole machine. But I think it shouldn't be seen as some sort of discrete roles or separate roles, but more like cogs in the one same machine. And it is our responsibility to make sure that this machine is well oiled. In the case of Marina, because I know that she was on the steering committee and I know how she works, so I know she'll do that part very well. Whoever is elected for the steering committee will have the responsibility to make sure that it also works on their side, and I'm sure the delegates will do that very well. Two, I'd like to add to what Tim said, that transparency is extremely important, and to make sure that the way that we do things is not just transparent, but also easy to understand, because it's no use telling people what you're doing if it's very hard to understand, is making sure that we always keep our procedures as simple as possible. In the case of resolutions that Tim brought up, as well as making it clear who you need to talk to when you have an idea for a resolution, I think that the steering committee should encourage and guide people to step forward with resolutions, like setting up working groups, floating ideas for resolutions and saying this, and would anyone like to come up with a resolution for this? And from the beginning of the working group, a couple of months or a few weeks before the deadline, making clear what the path of this resolution will be, when it will have to be ready, and who it will have to be handed to, and who will defend it, etc., so that everything is simple and clear from the beginning.
Thank you. Because actually, I also had a question to Alistair. How did you felt that it went last time? Of course, we couldn't we couldn't handle your resolution because you wrote a resolution. How was that process in your opinion right now? How did it go also with communication with the steering committee and the delegates? How was your experience?
In this sense, I'll concur with Tim that it wasn't immediately obvious who I had to talk to. So that's definitely something that needs to be fixed. But the rest of the process went quite well. So as I said in my previous reply, in the end, everyone ends up figuring out how it works, but it would be much better if things were clear and simple from the beginning so that we didn't have to reinvent the wheel and find out everything again every time that someone new wants to submit a resolution.
Thank you very much. I'm really looking forward to put your resolution back on the table in Paris together with you and Casper. Ruslan, what's your opinion about this? How do you see also I'm so sorry, people. My brain is getting fried because I was frying all day long. But how do you think the steering committee, the bureau, and the delegates should cooperate together?
Well, I think the cooperation is the it was. I think I also in the previous I really stated that is the need of cooperation because it's not just for the for LYMEC. LYMEC wants to work. There are different roles. I think roles are different, but common goal. So should be the same. I mean, we don't have to think the same, but the common goal would be the same. So being aligned and always, I mean, not always, but often speaking to it would be and accept the difference of the rest, so not to as work.
Okay, thank you very much for this. Are there any questions on the floor, or even our candidates? Do you have a question for someone else? Now is the moment to get political.
Honestly, I think I'm fine. I'm pretty much covered by everyone's answers. I'm just sad that Ruslan's signal connection is very weak, so I couldn't catch up with everything that he was saying. So.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I could hear you. I can hear you, Ruslan. Yeah. Okay, we do have a question first from Casper.
Yeah, I just have one quick question for what Tim said earlier in this debate about a more regulation on how people are voting at the conferences and such thing. Did I understand it correctly that you would have the privacy of our voting removed from the IMS, so the IMS delegates doesn't vote in secret?
So what, in terms of voting secrecy, that doesn't mean that I would necessarily say that every single vote should be made public, but in terms of most votes on resolutions and motions in the Congress, yes, I do think individual members should be able to know how the delegates have voted. Delegates have an elected mandate, and that means that independently of the steering committee and the bureau, they are entitled to make their own decisions. But when it comes to election time, I do think that members are entitled to know how their delegates have voted. And I'm not really sure that I would describe the current situation as secrecy, because there is nothing to prevent someone else who is present at the Congress from recording details of which member organizations and which delegates have voted how. It's just by convention that we don't have that. And it's quite standard practice in a lot of other similar organizations that elected delegates have to submit a report with how they've voted, so that the individual members can scrutinize that. So I don't think that's a bad thing, and I wouldn't phrase it as removing the secrecy of the vote from the delegates.
Yes, and maybe I can go on this question, and maybe for all of the candidates, but Tim may start because it's going further on this one. Because when it comes to reporting afterwards how you have voted, my question is, why would that always be necessary, since mostly when it comes to resolutions, when it comes to taking a stand on certain topics, mostly actually the positions are made clear by having a debate and a talk with the individual members before the Congress. Should we keep that? Keeping in mind then that the delegates will keep their words and they will vote as promised? Or would you rather say that the delegates should take the responsibility for themselves, make up their own minds, and afterwards bring out a report? Which should you prefer, to have debate on forehand or to report after the Congress?
Well, I don't think it's an either-or situation. I think it's great that there is a debate in advance of the Congress on how delegates will vote, but there are also a lot of things, be they urgency resolutions that come up at Congresses, or amendments on the fly, that can often have very substantial impacts on a resolution that aren't discussed in advance. And I don't think that necessarily means that there has to be some inspector standing in the back of the room checking that each of the delegates has voted exactly how they said they would. I think it just means that delegates write a report afterwards where they say how they voted on each resolution, so that members can see what has happened. And I have absolute confidence that where they have said they will vote a certain way, that they will keep their word on that. So.
Okay, thank you. Eleni?
Yeah. Okay, correct me if I'm wrong, Ben, but I think the whole debate on how the delegates vote and what should be done before Congresses and what should be done after, it's up to the delegates and not the steering committee per se. And also, it is in the internal rules very clearly written what are the responsibilities before and after the Congress. So I'm not quite sure why we are having this discussion in the steering committee debate.
Well, since you asked me, like, what is, it's like, the delegates clearly have in the statutes and the rules personal mandates. So once they are elected, they are not bound to vote anything. They vote in their own conscience. What is mandatory, though, is to have a pre-Congress meeting. So before every Congress, there has to be a meeting where the delegates invite all of the membership to discuss the resolution and forge an opinion based on the discussion they have with individual members. So that's mandatory. After that, the delegates can decide to vote together the same thing after discussion, or to vote their own conscience. The vote is personal. And as Tim, I think you clearly identified that the votes are not secret, except if the Congress requests a secret vote. That very rarely happens. Like, anyone in the room can observe, and there are other individual members which are not delegates that are present at Congresses. I think it's the question of reporting is something that is not mandatory as it is now, but I think it's a good thing to do. It was started last year, like the 3 delegates we had last year did report, did submit a written report. I don't think this wrote in the report every single vote they made, but they did report on their activity. And I think that's a good practice that should be continued for the delegates and maybe for the steering committee. The steering committee, of course, right now does report to the Congress orally, so you can sit in the minutes of each Congress. It's done as a group, so either like one of the steering committee members, sometimes it's a bureau representative, but part of the steering committee that talks for the steering committee itself. But I think it could be also good that the steering committee does annually, and not necessarily at every Congress, but annually, or at least at the end of the term, written report that is submitted to also the whole individual membership, and not only discussed at the Congress, so the members don't have to fish out the information from the 80 pages of minutes from each Congress. That's definitely something I'm considering to, well, I was having in my head to mention to the next elected SA members. So that would be for the next one to decide. But yes, definitely more reporting, as long as it's not too much is a great idea. I think Sylvia clarified also there was a question here, and I don't want to take too much time from the debates. Back to you.
No, it was just mostly a clarification that this is something up to the delegates only and not something that the steering committee is going to force the delegates to do in the end. Because I think the debate was getting there slowly, and this is not something that the steering committee has a say as per the internal rules.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry for taking your time. It was more.
Thank you.
Proceed.
Thank you. No, thank you Elaine, for the answer. Thank you. And next one up is Alistair.
I think if we all do our job properly, we can ensure transparency and de facto before the Congress without the need for a post-Congress report, in the sense that some of you already mentioned that there has to be a pre-Congress debate. And if we work through all the resolutions and have a healthy debate on everything, I think everyone will go home with a very clear idea of what the delegates plan to vote. So, as has already been mentioned, they're not bound to vote in a similar way, but I have absolute trust in the delegates that if they plan to vote one way or another, whatever they want to do, they will inform the rest of the IMS. If everyone knows what our delegates are going to vote 1 or 2 weeks beforehand, we don't need to repeat the same process 1 week later.
Thank you. And Ruslan, have you understood? So do you still need me to repeat the question, or?
Yes, if you could. Thank you.
Okay, like the question has evolved right now towards, do you think, would you keep the current process also as it's stated in statutes, that you having with the IMS, with the individual members, a pre-Congress gathering to speak about resolutions, to speak about what the Congress delegates will do? Would you just stick to that system, or would you also like to implement a system that the delegates would need to report afterwards how they have voted? But Eleni and also others have stated that could be and should be also a task for the delegates and not for the steering committee. So what's your stand on that?
Well, these are more bureaucratic stuff. Well, of course, delegates do participate and vote for the IMS, so they did vote and not the steering committee. So, yes, maybe they should answer for the votes and the Congress instead of the steering committee, or maybe doing something with both the delegates, IMS delegates, and steering committee together, just to show the cooperation.
Yes, thank you. It is, of course, a more bureaucratic question because becoming a member of the steering committee is more of a bureaucratic function. And then, oh, Tim would like to come back really shortly on this point. Okay, 1 more minute, Tim. Floor's yours. For 1 minute,
Okay,
60 seconds.
so just on one point that I think came up, which is that we should trust that the delegates are going to vote as they said they have. I think it's very important to make the point that asking for more information doesn't mean that you distrust someone or that you think they've done something wrong. I work in audit, and 99% of the time, when I ask for information, everything comes back perfectly and there's no mistakes. It's just about having that information available. And I think we might think that there's not a need for that extra information, but that's because we're already involved at quite a high level. If you're in the membership and you don't really have very much information, I think that information helps you feel as though you are actually involved. And just quickly on the point that this isn't a matter for the steering committee, I completely disagree with that. The purpose of the steering committee is to help govern the IMS and to propose ways to improve the IMS. And so if this suggestion is to come from anywhere, it's to come from the steering committee.
And not from the actual delegates. Thank you very much, all of you. Oh no, Alistair, okay. Wait, yeah. Alistair, you have the last reply in that case.
Yeah, I'd like to really underline the importance of trust in this question, because unlike in auditing, where you can have a paper trail to verify that that trust is well placed, in this case we don't have a paper trail of who voted what. after the Congress, you can go and ask the delegate, hey, did you vote this? And there's nothing stopping him or her from saying, yeah, sure, dude, I voted exactly what you wanted. So at the end of the day, you will still have to trust that person. So again, I think that in this, right now we have delegates I trust 100%, but even if they are replaced by someone else, it'll still be a question of trust because, as I said, there's no paper trail. So in this sense, I refer to my previous answer.
Yeah, thank you very much. So I actually hear here, depending on which steering committee member will be elected, we could have a review about the internal rules of IMS, because this is actually where it's going about. Okay, then I would like to thank our candidates for participating in this debate. I do think it was quite interesting. It's lovely this is being recorded and that people can watch this afterwards. I would like to wish all of the candidates best of luck with the election. Go out there and campaign. And to our individual members and all the people attending here, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you've learned something about this. And then if they would like, I would like to ask maybe the current steering committee to have maybe a last word. And if there is maybe, I don't know, some point of order or some information from the Secretary General. Is there anything you would like to say?
Yeah, I mean,
Hi.
Yes, so hi everyone. Thank you for this debate. Was very interesting. I think it's nice, a bit of a pity that more IMS did not join. But yeah, I mean, we can never find a good moment for.
But you will be able to watch it online this time because now that's been recorded, we can post it.
Yes, that's a good point. Yeah. So hi everyone out there as well. But yeah, my point would be that the elections will take place between the 25th and 28th of May. So not next week, but the week after. You will receive emails with the ballots, and you can cast your votes during those few days. Yeah, so all individual members who were registered in order with their fees at the time we decided was the 1st of May. Will be receiving the email with the options to vote. So yes, best of luck to all 4 of you, and thank you for the debate.
And then the last words of the current steering committee members.
Well, thank you, but I think I said what was needed to be said during the introduction, so I just have to thank you all for a great debate, for answering the questions, and I wish you all good luck. I hope to talk to the 2 elected person to do a kind of handover soon, but in the meantime, good luck again, and glad to have you add you here tonight.
Yeah, thank you very much. A last round of applause for the current steering committee and also for our candidates. Thank you very much. Have a good night, and I hope to see you all very, very soon.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, and have a great evening, guys.
Have a great evening, everyone.